We have Kevin Franklin. I've got that many women.
Okay, I think I'm live. I'll call this meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Park Commissioners to order. We'll note that four commissioners are with us today, and Commissioner North is joining us by Zoom. And I'd like to welcome our visitors who are here with us today. We have no public comments today from the audience. I do want to acknowledge comments that we have received that has been distributed to all park commissioners related to the boat dock issue. Comments related to Arm Letter Park and use of Roundup at Arm Letter Park, which, as you all know, is managed by Great Parks of Hamilton County. And then comments received on maintenance requests in the riverfront parks. So those are the public comments that have been circulated to the commissioners in advance. We have one agenda item today, the boat dock, and I will turn it over to Kara to tee this up for us.
Thank you very much, President Guest. Thank you to all of our guests. The way that we are going to conduct our agenda today is to allow the two respondents to the request for proposal for boat docks to present to the board. We're going to ask those individuals to keep their presentations to 30 minutes maximum. At that time, the park board is able to engage in Q&A with the respondent. So we will allow for 1 hour maximum for Hafner and Sons, or H. Hafner and Sons, and 1 hour maximum for Queen City Riverboats.
And I will add for public information that this is the first exposure that the commissioners have had to either of the proposals that were submitted on this. We have not received any information in advance. We have not received this presentation, either presentation in advance. So this is the first time we are hearing these presentations. So thank you. And so H. Hafner is first up, and who will be presenting? Good morning.
Good morning to you, Justin Cooper.
Good morning, Justin.
Thank you.
And for clarity, Mary, for streaming, is this the only speaker for the streaming?
Yes, so if you want to move it closer.
I think we should move that. If you could either move that closer or move that closer so that those attending virtually can hear the presentations.
I set that on a chair or something between us.
Yeah, good idea.
Logistics. Perfect.
Do we need to test audio?
Yeah, Commissioner North, make sure you tell us if you can or cannot hear the conversation as being presented. So.
So far, so good. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to present. I represent H. Hafner and Sons. My name is Justin Cooper. And what you'll see is our presentation regarding our concept for the reef at Cincinnati's Landing. I believe I have control.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Would you mind telling us what your position is at the company?
President,
Thank you.
yes, thank you. As I'm sure that you will have access later on to the entire bid package that was presented. What we picked up for our presentation today were some notable aspects and what we consider to be some standout features of our concept. One of which is the concrete docks that we wish to employ. These are very low maintenance, very wide, 12 feet wide, and high safety considerations because of the lack of wood or splintering, long-term serviceable lifetime. And one key feature for the area in which they're being placed is a weight attenuation feature because of the weight and because of their solid nature and the way they're connected. And they do provide for a considerable amount of wave attenuation, which in that area where the dock is going to be placed, the city dock, there can be at times an increased amount of wave action because of boater activity, as has been addressed in past years regarding the no wake zone from dawn till dusk. Excuse me, from dusk till dawn. I do have some videos I'd like to show regarding, I believe these will better describe what a concrete dock is rather than me trying to explain it. If we can bring up the first video, please. These are no audio. These are just videos regarding the construction of and then the features that they provide. If you wouldn't mind expanding that video, please. These aren't, by no means are we married to any particular manufacturer. This is just a good video that provided a very short synopsis of how they're made. There's a styrofoam block that's encased in concrete. If you could, please, for a moment, shortly right there, if you don't mind, a quick pause. What they'll show here, what they just made on the cutouts. There are tubes that run through the entire dock to allow for utilities, both water, electric, and pump out. So it'll be pump out, and we'll pump out we'll later discuss in the bid presentation. You can
So the
continue.
interior is styrofoam, the exterior.
Correct, yes, yeah. You continue the video, please. I believe the units that we've looked at are 40 feet long, 12 foot wide. So it's encased in a rebar structure and then concrete placed over. And then there's different methods of attachment between the different units, depending upon manufacturer.
And it flows.
Yes.
It looks like you all are seeing something on your screen, which is not on the live stream screen. If your screens are moving, ours are not. We
We're
just,
currently viewing a video that was provided via link in the presentation. I can we can provide that link somehow via Zoom.
Can you see it now, Molly?
no, we just see concrete docks with the bullet points.
Are you able to navigate either of those links available?
No, because all we have is your screen. It's not an
I
active
understand, I'm sorry.
document.
Is there a way for us to present these via email to those?
Yes.
If it's a waste of time?
Does your packet have a printout
Yes, ma'am.
of what you just gave us in the video?
Yes, I can provide that. I can provide
That would make
that,
sense.
yes. For those viewing via Zoom, these videos help to describe the construction and the features of the concrete dock system that we wish to employ. As we've just discussed, we can provide those links at a later time so you can view. And if you wouldn't mind, please clicking the second video link. And then
Yeah, I can make sure I can.
once again, if you wouldn't mind expanding that video. Once again, this is a different manufacturer, but
I'm so sorry.
no problem. The video provided by this particular manufacturer shows the ability to which waves can be decreased from behind the dock. along with the wave attenuation features, there's a stability factor associated with linked concrete docks as opposed to floated tank style steel docks. That's a pretty quick one. That's about it on videos. Second key feature. I believe that you have control. Okay, I'm back. Second key feature of our proposal is the orientation of our headboat. Our docks are configured downstream from headboat in line with current. This allows for a breakwater concept, also provides for a great degree of debris deflection, which the Ohio River is known for at times, especially after flooding. So the docks are in a protected cove-like nature behind the headboat. Got some pictures here we'd like to show. This is a feature that's quite local, called the Ohio River Launch Club. They've employed the same technique with a angled headboat upstream, and then the docks hanging downstream, protected behind that permanently moored vessel. As witnessed in a concept design here, much the same feature. The docks behind our headboat to help with debris deflection and act as a breakwater for current. Our intent is to employ a pump out facility into the dock, obtained through the Clean Vessel Act through ODNR, our Department of Natural Resources, to be grant funded. There would be pump out facilities along the entire length of the dock, as well as at the very end of the dock facility, to allow for ease of access to all public boaters, as which is mandated in the CVA grant. One thing that makes this, there's been a reduction in pump out facilities in the Cincinnati area because of certain marinas closing or marinas abandoning those facilities. Four Seasons, another local marina, for instance, is a pay-to-use facility. Ohio River Launch Club is in a position that's very difficult to maneuver for some novice boaters, even some experienced boaters. Rivertown Marina has a pump out publicly funded as well. However, its location can become a challenge for some larger vessels. And its nature of being a more private setting, sometimes it's difficult for anybody, public boaters, to even be aware of that facility. So our dock at the very end allows for ease of use and a very open, inviting design that helps to increase an environmental stewardship nature of the river, for vessels not dumping their black water or sewage into the river and being pumped out. There's been much discussion regarding the placement of the marina. I believe that's where we are, why we're here now. Our facility, our design facility concept and renderings shows our facility to be located, the headboat to be located, what we consider to be as far east as we could to facilitate the length of dock necessary, but before the Roadland Bridge. We feel that the position does not hinder any type of landing from paddle boats that has occurred in the past and we would expect to continue to occur in the future, which would be welcome business at our facility. We also take advantage of the current infrastructure, the parking facilities that are at the current landing location. It allows for ease of use by emergency services to access the dock along with their emergency vessels that they're going to be stored there. And also utility access. We can use the existing strut and Marion Way to aid in the installation of utilities, water, gas, and sewer. We've got some, there we go. If you notice, or this is an older picture, but this is what was able to be captured from Google. The majestic riverboat is still there in this picture. Of course, it's gone now. The furthest east our facility will be located is in the general direction of the paddle wheel. if anybody's familiar with that area, the point we're putting, which would be in this location.
Mhm.
So we still maintain access to the landing while also utilizing the current infrastructure, parking especially.
So again, you would say the head boat would be near the paddle boat
Correct.
and then downstream would be.
Downstream would be our docks, yes, sir.
Thank you.
This allows for a fast track to reality on completion of the project, and we've got existing product here, existing facilities that can be utilized for the installation. Our headboat amenities have been designed in such a manner, it's a formula and practice across the nation and in other countries as well. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Marinas, docks, and restaurants, bars go hand in hand. They support each other quite well. And in our position here, the design of the vessel will be ADA compliant. We'll have a full kitchen, full service bar as well. And then also for those boaters that are using either long-term moorage or transient moorage, transient dock usage, there'll be a shower and laundry facility available to be utilized during their length of stay. I don't know that this will show up quite well, but there we go. Digital copies of these renderings can also be supplied. It can be zoomed in upon, but we have gone so far as to design the layout of the structure and begun the path of ADA compliance by both our architect and our engineer for the facility.
Is your design vision one story or is it?
There is a small mezzanine, and I've actually got a small quick picture here, if you don't mind. Currently, this mezzanine is not involved in the structure to be added to. We feel that it adds just another level of professionalism to the facility and just raises the class. This will be above the bar area, looking out onto the river. Some other pictures here as well. I don't know really where to point this.
Over here.
Over here. I'm just trying it. This would be a view from the river looking in. Full garage doors looking at the reef. Maximize viewing space for those customers looking out on the water. There will be no dock in front of the reef itself to hinder any view. This would be just an unladen view of the river and the surrounding waterscape. The concept of attachment from the dock to the reef, just once again, pure concept and definitely going to change there. This end of the reef, this end of the headboat structure, we've designed as a sun area. We know that one concern on the vessel was that it's all roof structure. So we wanted to provide an area for those customers that did want to have access to setting from a sun area. We removed the roof material, kept the superstructure, and then offered a seating area and a bar restaurant service area for both customers of the restaurant and marina likewise.
Is that totally open?
The roof area would be, yeah. It would be just a complement to the under roof seating area. Sure.
The dimensions of the headboat,
60 by 120.
60 by 140.
120. 60 by 120.
And what is the capacity?
We expect the seat capacity around 250.
It looked like you had kind of bifolding garage
Wide
doors.
garage doors that flip out,
close-
yeah, but
close
would
it
not
in.
enter into view, correct, yeah.
Okay.
No, so it would be an all-weather structure. Seasonal considerations will be made, as I'll discuss further regarding its operation in the winter. Being a marine type vessel may not be so inviting in it's a more harsher winter, but our length of service may be, a length of operation for the bar and restaurant may actually be extended by professional sports team activity. We know that that's a huge draw. We would definitely want to take advantage of those opportunities if the seasons of either of those teams were to extend into post game playoffs or Steve, I don't know that's going to happen. getting into some gray area there. Facility management concept, we've designed this, our management concept, our approach from a voter's approach. What we want to do, people talk, we hear all the time, well, people, there's a difference, there's a divide between those on land and those on water. And we want to provide a symbiotic connection between those on land and those that participate in voting in the summer months here in Cincinnati. So especially the Banks project, we feel that there's super easy access for people from come from the water and participate in those activities, in those restaurants and those features that they're showcased in Cincinnati. Especially one thing that comes to mind are the Ninja Warrior Challenge, things like that. There were some people that actually thought people would tie up, and for other events as well, people tie up in Hooters, the dock, and then cross over the bridge to participate in an activity in Cincinnati, and then cross back over while their boats at Hooters. Hooters beer cellar dock. So we want to provide an opportunity for those boaters not to have to utilize Kentucky product. Day boater definition is somebody that we're going to define as somebody that comes in for the day, ties up their vessel, and participates either at the restaurant or into the Banks or even further in the Cincinnati OTR area, and then comes back before the end of that day, boards their vessel and then leaves and goes back to their home marina or pulls the boat out for storage of the evening. Transient boater is somebody that we're going to define as an individual that stays overnight, at which point there would be a cost model applied to their stay. Those boaters would then have access to the shower and laundry facilities once they're paying customers are considered to be transient. Long-term mortgage, we wanted to add this to our proposal to allow for greater income as well, but also there's a convenience factor of being downtown Cincinnati and having a marina right there. I think that a lot of boaters will participate in that marina once they are convinced of the wave attenuation factors of those concrete docks and the solid nature that they provide. And just having boats there long-term, having a lot of vessels there provides for an ambiance in the marina setting. For those that aren't necessarily associated or understand how marinas work, when people come from land, it's always a draw. Pirates Cove, Four Seasons Marina, for people to come down, enjoy a meal, enjoy a drink, and just be around the boats. A lot of people, you see a lot of posts on Facebook, people talking about that, and it allows for a lot of goodwill nature between the business and the general public.
Is there a limit to the length of stay that you guys would recommend, or
If for a transient,
for a long-term?
long-term mortgage, we would define, and it's in greater depth in our proposal, would be a 6-month contract.
Okay,
At which point we would probably, given the nature of this marina, we would probably not provide long winter storage contracts, but the summer mortgage contract would definitely be, it would be a 6-month period.
and would you limit the percentage of dock length to long-term versus transient versus day?
No, the
Okay.
transient day boater they're gonna work they're gonna be almost considered the same
Right.
until they stay overnight,
Right.
at which point they'll be a paying customer. During the day, there would be no fee applied if they just a day boater.
But you don't want the long-term,
They're,
be so successful, you don't have any space for the
no,
transient.
sir, so their operation is limited to the footage is prescribed. The operation of the transient or day boater operation is limited to, as required by the proposal.
Gotcha.
The footage required.
All right, so there'll always be that.
Correct. That footage will always be available
Okay,
for transient or day boater operation. So long-term, we're just taking advantage of the cool nature of both sides of the dock on the inside.
I've heard you mention that there's electric.
Mhm.
And I've heard you mention that there's sewage taken care of,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
I haven't heard you mention about fuel.
This facility would not have a fuel component associated with it, at least in its initial proposal. That would require tanks on site, on property, off land, off dock, and storage facilities. That there was a component that would require much more engineering with regard to flooding and the nature of that area. It's not something that it was not required in the original RFP, nor to be included in our proposal.
And what's the total number of spaces that you've,
How many boats
how
can
many
you cover?
boats?
Well, depending upon the length, our footage was as prescribed in the RFP. If you give me one moment, I'll pull that real quick.
Okay, sure.
I don't have that document with me right now.
Approximately how many?
Our total footage is, do you know that total footage offhand? We provided. You bear with me once I'll continue, and I'll get back to that question.
Okay.
The total dock footage. I don't want to give an off number because we are looking at both sides of the dock.
Okay.
So who would be on the, call it outside, not the.
Outside would be transient,
Transient,
neighbors,
and
and inside would be for
So those guys
long-term
will
board.
suffer the wave action a little bit more than the.
Yeah, but they would also receive the concrete dock concept would allow for that stability of the dock as opposed to.
Right, so the dock's not moving, the boat might move a little bit
Correct.
more on the outside versus the inside, but the dock's stable.
Yes, sir.
Just curious, what's the price of fuel on the river these days?
Last I checked.
Is it over $6 yet?
We went to 419.
Okay. I still like that Ohio sign. That's not the only Ohio sign you'll see anymore.
That's a collector's item.
Yeah, that's nice.
We're working over here now. Okay, profit sharing, which is a huge concern, I believe from all parties interested. Our restaurant and bar operations allow for 8% gross revenue to the city. That requires any just in that 8% growth revenue, more or less as our rent payment to the city. The dock and marine operations, profit sharing split of 75% of revenue to the city, 25% to the reef establishment. We wanted to make this as a profitable payback opportunity to the city. And the focus on the docks, marina study was, we felt that that's where the profit sharing focus should be led.
Mr. Cooper, were you able to estimate what those dollar amounts could
We made some
potentially be?
speculative numbers on that. I can provide those shortly. There's also some questions regarding qualifications. Our business currently, Chapman & Sons, does have a lot of seasonal considerations, just to diversify our operation. So that requires us to make a lot of changes from season to season, with cold weather approaching, springtime approaching, flooding. Our location near the Little Miami River requires us to also plan ahead when it comes to flooding and take that into account for day-to-day operations. This is nothing different, except that it has to be on a much faster timescale with regard to response to flooding occurrences and management of the marina, and how the marina will be raised and lowered, and how the marina will be moored to the dock to land. Response is key in this, and I think that we've exhibited that. We've shown that in our current operation with Hafner. Project management considerations. I'll put cons up here. If anybody's familiar with the gas cons plant on Spring Grove Avenue, we managed the entire concrete crushing operation of that. It was a 3-month-long project, and just to show that we have a lot of huge experience with the coordination of different parties associated with one goal in mind, and this is going to be no different. Current city contracts include our clean hard fill disposal site that we maintain, as well as a waste hauler franchise. And we have extensive agency coordination experience with EPA, CERC, which is a state environmental response commission, ODNR, and even the health department, many of which would be associated with this marine operation, especially from food service operation, and then ODNR included. Aquatic qualifications require my association with the Manhattan Harbor development. Harbor itself, not the the larger, broader development with the actual harbor. We were brought in as the original Harry's World management team to help get the bar and restaurant off the ground. And we worked there for a year on that to a successful, profitable operation to this day. And we still maintain winter dock operations and management facility, management operation, of which the winter of 2017, 2018 was a notable experience when the river crested, I believe, 60.5 feet. It required, as any marine operator in the city would know, it was a very challenging time and a lot of sleepless nights. In my personal navigating boating experience regards, I have a lot of inland, coastal, and near coastal experience, as well as multiple 10-tom excursions. Those are navigations from Cincinnati to the open Gulf through Mobile Bay. So to show that, exhibit that we have a connection with this boating community, and that I know that there's some questions regarding our landscaping company putting in a bid for this. But it's been a I wouldn't call it necessarily a dream, but once the opportunity presented itself, it's something that we thought we could present a concept and present something of value for the city from a different perspective of operation. If you don't mind, I'll get those numbers for you real quick on the civil document. And then, you have any questions in the meantime?
Before you get there, I'd just like to mention the commissioner sent to Mr. Cooper, you are around 25 to 30 minutes into
Sure.
your presentation. And then additionally, as to the very specifics that you were asking, Mr. Cooper, there was a comment made earlier that the assumption was that the commissioners would receive the full proposals. That is not how I understand this process as to date, that both H. Abner and Sons and Queen City Riverboats had signed a waiver of confidentiality to come present to you today. But it is my current understanding that you will not have full access to the proposal. So these types of questions and giving you the time, Mr. Cooper, to communicate that to the commissioner.
Okay, thank you. I was under the assumption they would be, okay.
Thank you.
To be clear, the proposal is a presentation that we're seeing, so we will not get that. Well,
I was under the assumption that when I signed the waiver release, that the entire proposal would be made available to the park board.
We will continue to inquire. In preparation for this meeting, it was communicated that we could not share that with you. So whether or not that would be,
Who communicated that to you?
that was communications between Bobby Hagerman and Mary Turner.
So city procurement said we would not be allowed to have the proposal.
At least prior to this meeting, you were not.
So I understand prior, but I don't understand afterwards.
We'll continue to ask that question. I don't want to take your
All
time.
right, thank you.
I do have one burning question.
Yes, please.
The cost of this operation.
Mhm.
What's this costing you?
Personally, or
Yeah. So how much are you investing in this? What's it costing? I've heard no mention of money.
as I think this goes hand in hand with what we just discussed. I was under the assumption that you didn't provide my budget. So I do apologize for that, but I can go over some rough numbers for you right now, if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Sure. With regard to the city dock, the city for transient or dockage required 600 feet. I was in an initial question there, received.
And that's 600 feet long dock, so both sides, the
600 feet of
Of
dock.
dock
Dock space.
space, so 300 feet both sides roughly.
We're providing 600 feet on one side,
Gotcha.
and then the long-term storage on the back
So
side.
be on the other side.
Our proposal allows for 1,440 feet of total linear dockage.
1,440
And 40 total.
Our profit numbers are speculative. Is in any operations, but we've expected to operate for our 32 weeks of the year. Peak revenue is expected in mid-summer months. And as previously stated, operations may extend with professional sports activity. And at a potential profit at 60% operations, so speculative operations at 60% from the bar and restaurant alone. The city would, at 8%, the city would potentially receive $89,000 yearly from a speculative operation, 60% growth business. From dockage and moorage operations. Once again, expected operation 32 weeks per year. Peak revenue is expected in midsummer months. 1,400 feet of total dock, 520 feet for transient operations, 80 feet for emergency service operations, 840 feet for long-term moorage. 25% capacity at 3 days a week, so those are very conservative numbers. So we're not going to try to say that this, we're going to try to present that this dock is going to be occupied 7 days a week, 100%. We thought that 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just at 25%, gross 24,960. 80% of emergency services, assuming long-term storage contracts, 6,080. And then the 840 feet long-term moorage operation, assuming 75% capacity, 47,880. And it's 75% profit share income to the city at 59,190 per year. Total projected revenue share to the city around 148,000 per year.
Long-term was, what was that 75%, you say occupied?
This is assuming 75% capacity.
Capacity.
Yes, correct, of the long-term.
Throughout that
operations.
32 month
Of the 6 month.
32 week.
Yes,
And it's a
yes, ma'am, I have your question.
the long term, you charge by the foot, I guess, right?
Correct,
Gotcha.
correct. There would be a minimum charge, but then also a footage contract would be, I believe we said it at $75 per foot. I can update you on that. Going rate right now on marinas is around for an inland marina, of course, the protected marina is about $85 a foot. So there's a discount applied to those people being on open water for long-term contracts. Total budget, 2.335, 200.
That's the total capital invested.
Yes,
That's what I was after.
yes, ma'am. I had you on my list.
He didn't forget you.
Mr. Cooper, is that in addition to a dollar amount that would be requested from the commissioners?
No, those are total monies. And at that math, with those conservative usage rates, I believe the 20-year term payback to the city ends up being close to 2.9.
Offset that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mr. Cooper, could you please repeat that?
Sure. But those presented numbers, the profit share models, as well at the low frequency usage rate, we expect that with that number provided 148,000 per year to the city. That totals up into their 20-year term to be around 2.9, I believe, paid back to the city.
2.9 payback.
2.9 million paid back to the city over the entire 20-year term.
20 years.
Don't buy this guy.
Jim, I've got a couple of questions when it's appropriate.
Please go ahead, Molly.
Okay. First of all, thank you for coming and presenting to us. I think I speak for all of us in saying that we appreciate it. I know it's been a long process and everyone's anxious to move forward with the boat dock. Being that I'm a new commissioner, I'm hoping you can entertain my need to kind of come up to a little bit more macro level on some thoughts on this boat dock. I'm just trying to figure out really what the benefit of this boat dock is to the city of Cincinnati. Meaning, when I think about the average Cincinnatian, how will we use this boat dock and how will it benefit us? I have a couple more questions, so stick with me for a minute. You talked about the land water symbiosis. It's hard for me to see how that really works with this boat dock anchored at the base of a parking lot and a very tired Coliseum with a very significantly sized restaurant already there. So, I'm trying to think about how this is going to benefit the banks, which could certainly use the additional business from the boaters. I love your idea about there being a marina, because I think it would be wonderful to have a boating community that really has a base in Cincinnati, because we can grow, community and business around that. But without that, I'm just struggling to see how this really is a cohesive part of the riverfront that we have. And then the pictures that you provided of the restaurant, with all due respect, didn't really strike me as a destination location for just in terms of the quality of finishes of the place. So can you kind of paint a picture for what this is going to look and feel like? There sure are a lot of seats in there. And, to the extent that this is the direction we'd like to move forward, we'd like to see the place, filled with people on a real destination. So I packed 3 or 4 questions in there. If you wouldn't mind giving me your thoughts on this, that'd be great.
Sure. As a benefit to the city, this is the marina or dock has long been proposed with the inception of the bank's project. And I'll tie the answers together here from a boating community perspective. It seems as from a boaters feel abandoned in the city. There is already a very strong boating community, and the city has neglected to address those boaters' needs and concerns throughout the years. Many times this project has come to light and gets swept back under the rug. And I feel that the boating community and the monies that are spent, especially from tax revenue, the purchase and sale of vessels, and the sale of goods associated with those vessels, that supporting local businesses, is definitely a necessary a community that needs to be acknowledged. As for the tired, worn down area that the place the dock is supposed to be placed, is the featurette of this facility is not to be the bank. The featurette is supposed to be the water community, the water itself. Hence the nature of the fold out doors and the viewing to the water itself in that area, for individuals to take part in that community. And if they feel so inclined, maybe that would help make some decisions for them to decide whether or not they want to join the community in the future. And maybe I want to get a boat. Maybe I want to do this. That looks a lot of fun. That provides an opportunity for the general public to view that area. And as for design, we've taken capacity into consideration regarding any potential restaurant wants to maximize. We want to maximize capacity versus experience, but the capacity numbers that we've been given and we've designed to allow for particular possible event rental for weddings of government facilities or company parties, end-of-year parties, that summer festivities, things like that, that could rent out the entire facility. That could max that need a place of such size, and to would allow for the square footage plan by no means is set in stone, but we do want to allow for that to support the boaters, both long-term and transient, to allow for those shower and laundry facilities. That's a key part of our component, so that they can have a place to stay for an extended period of time. Hope I answered those
Will you be operating the restaurant or are you going to look for a tenant?
I will operate the restaurant.
You will be operating.
Question, I had a similar question about the aesthetic presentation. I get it that the water in the river is a big attraction. But what I was wondering about is, if I'm approaching from land, what do I see? I didn't see a picture of that.
Okay.
So what would that look like? How would that be inviting?
Sure, we can bring up that presentation again, please. The land component right now is structured by the parking lot, which you would utilize associated with the public landing.
Yeah.
And then I can go back here. Maybe that's okay. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, I went one too far. There we go. Well, I pull up that most representative picture.
I think the next slide might do that.
It's in here somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's there.
Well, there's actually a view from land.
Yeah.
So should be right off, I said you further back up over this. I was thrown off by that Google picture.
Didn't have it. There you go.
This is not geographically representative in the rendering, but this would give you an idea of what you would approach from the view.
It would be much bigger than that.
The dock, yes, the dock would extend to a much greater distance.
You've got 2 layers.
Yeah.
Is that a good rendering of the boat, of the head boat?
Yes,
That's size wise?
yes.
Thank you.
So is this further upstream or down?
This particular rendering shows the boat being further east, or in this orientation further left. The boat would actually, the head boat would actually be further right,
Okay,
or further west in the actual placement.
downstream's easier for me to understand.
Correct, downstream, yes, downstream. I apologize.
That's right.
Commissioners and Mr. Cooper, 20 minutes remaining.
Thank you.
So that size is representative of the head boat. The dock itself is longer
The
than
dock would
that.
be
And
considerably
it's gonna
longer.
be
Do you know what
pushed down and the dock is
Only
down.
two layers.
Was that?
Docking, not just one.
It would be about double the dock that you see there.
Okay, are there 2 rows of docks?
It'd be a single
Just
row,
one
single-
long, one
yeah,
long,
correct.
600 feet.
Both on both
Oh, I
sides.
misunderstood that. There are 2 rows.
Oh, man.
No, you can tie it up on both
both
sides
sides
of
of the
the
dock,
single.
Single,
The dock would be 12 foot wide,
I
and
thought
boats
it
on
was
either
12.
side.
Since we're not going to get this presentation, I'm curious about that illustration. I think it's a slide 2 before this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
describing,
Yeah, it's a layout kind of slide,
Sure.
very detailed. I was wondering, what is that?
That's the floor plan?
that's a potential floor plan. I believe at the time of this floor plan design, let's back this way, did not include laundry facilities. We've since edited to include laundry facilities.
Yes, that.
A digital copy, I will provide, this has been provided, a digital copy will be provided that as well. I mean, I can't zoom in on this, really, I wish I could, but I don't know how
I
to.
get it, but we don't get that.
Well, we will have access. This is now a public document.
Yeah, this document, you would definitely have access to.
So there's no question that we will have access to the
That
presentation.
was the question I was asking
Yeah.
earlier. So we will get the presentation, but not the proposal.
Yeah.
2 different
I-
documents.
At this moment, I've already sent a request in
Got it.
for clarification on the commissioner's access to the proposal itself.
I just wanted to make sure those were different. And this we can't get. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
great, thank you.
And then if you could talk a little bit more, and I know you've touched on that in your presentation, but tell us, this is an opportunity to tell us why you think your presentation, your experience, why you are the best person to do this for the city.
Well, ultimately, I have an emotional attachment to this design. There are emotional components of the vessel is in use. And then to provide a facility, once again, that is from a boater's perspective, one that is inviting and doesn't act as has no potential deterrent features that would prevent boaters from utilizing the facility. I feel that our management concept allows for that and allows to be, from a boater's perspective, a destination that will allow for that symbiotic relationship with land and water.
And how do you communicate or advertise, or how do you draw people to your facility?
I have yet to design an advertisement plan.
But I mean, how do you, or is it that you build it and they will come?
Well, from a boater's perspective, there's a very tight-knit community.
Okay,
I believe that would speak for itself. From a land perspective, I would probably have to contract with some budget for advertising services, which would definitely be out of my realm. We would defer to those companies. Yes, ma'am.
Did I understand it correctly that if I have a boat and I just want to come in and tie up and do a baseball game?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're not charging anything?
No, ma'am.
I did understand that correctly.
what's your reasoning behind that? Because I was under the impression that there would be a.
No, if somebody were to show up for a baseball game, and already you've got, if somebody were to show up, say a 30-foot boat, and our length of our transient dockage fee is $2. So right off the bat, you're hitting almost $60 just to step on the dock.
So they would.
No.
pay-
No, it would not. We think that would be a deterrent utilization.
Okay.
Is that common practice?
No, that is
In other
not.
cities?
No, that is
So
not.
this is an amenity you're offering.
The common practice is for allow for day boaters.
So that is a common practice,
Yes.
to not charge for day boaters, so it really supports.
Like I said, yeah.
Local business.
So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're trying to provide an arena that operates much like others do in their different parts of the nation. There will be no charge for transient boaters or day boaters per se. The only time that charge would be levied, the $2 per foot would be levied, is if they stayed overnight and utilized electric facility or
For dumping.
dumping would also be, public dumping is also free unless they use the shower facility. That's part of the public pump out is required that to be accessed to all free of charge regarding by way of the grant from ODNR. We want to remove any deterrent whatsoever that prevents customers or marina customers from enjoying the dock and then moving onward into the city.
How many people will you anticipate, or do you anticipate staffing the facility, on any given day?
Sure. Restaurant operations would probably be around 10 to 15. To agree? Okay, 10 to 15. Restaurant operations, dock operations would be one manager per day, 121 after hours individual for service calls or emergency calls. And then there's a potential, depending upon rental business, to have dock hands, which provides an employment opportunity for high school age kids to come out and help tie up boats for people that may just in fact need that help. And they work off a tip basis, so we could have the potential of three positions during the day operations, one overnight operation facility, or
So it'll
security operation.
Always be at least one person there throughout the day.
Yes, definitely.
One of the most important aspects of this is taking care of the emergency boats
Yes, ma'am.
and having a place for them to always be,
Yes, ma'am.
as opposed to having to be brought down to the river and put in and so on.
So
So where would that location be on that?
those boats, it would be,
Because that would be a permanent location. They would be there.
yes, that would be a reserved permanent area. This is upon, if they decided to change and depend upon their preference, but my initial design plan would involve them being the first boats on the seaward side So there will be easy
On the
access
outside.
on the outside, so they could hop in the boat and go. And then also the parking lot structure, the parking lot being right there at the head boat allows for fast, expedient action.
And have you communicated with those folks?
No, ma'am.
So how many of the total feet will be dedicated to that?
80 feet.
80.
And as you approach this, and again, we haven't gotten into the details, the permitting requirement. So who has, what type of permitting or approval would we have to get for an operation like this?
Army Corps, there's
Army Corps.
There's an existing permit, and I've been, there's some gray area there, but I've been told by the city that there will be some help navigating the transfer of said permit and the alteration, any alteration that may be necessary.
Because we have the existing one that we use for recreation. use to-
Correct.
I understand that voters are your primary target, but you also talked about using the facility for other events.
Mhm.
So have you given any thought to how much revenue that might potentially generate?
No, ma'am. There have been no speculative nature for numbers on the event rental. It just presents itself as an opportunity.
Commissioners and Mr. Cooper, you have 10 minutes remaining.
What, you're thinking that this may be open 32?
We've estimated 32 weeks.
And then the question would be those off-season weeks when you're shut down, is that basically just, how do you envision that? Are things like chained off, or do you pull the gang planks?
Definitely, there was a security gate, and even during the 32 weeks operation, there'll be a security system associated, but these docks may not, depending upon the weather and the flooding of the river, these docks may not be stored at that location over the winter. They may be moved to what would be considered like a safe harbor location for a man.
Okay, so you float the docks.
Those docks
away.
may, and that depending upon.
Head boat as well?
Headboat will probably remain on site unless the flood, the height of the flood would require us to move it.
So big flood, okay?
Yep.
Big flood,
Big flood,
and these used to operate on the river
okay,
in the produce industry, all right? And a big flood, and we waited to the very last moment to move it because our semis, because the stacks run up, could operate with flood water pretty high,
Yep.
okay? How do you do it? How do you move all this quickly, and where do you go?
but then, well, we have a lot of modeling is provided with us by weather service today. We can determine how high the river is going to rise I'd say there's a good 4 to 5 day modeling feature associated with river operations. But we would also have on-site hydrographic testing, and we would know exactly how deep the water is at our position.
God, where do you go?
We have 2 different areas that we've contracted with verbal agreements to store the marinas in the case of those 100 or 500 year flood events to move facilities.
Assume you use towboat or? how do you-
Towboat, yeah. The nature of it, for instance, the 60.5 foot event that we had 2017, 2018, that would require the full removal of the marina. To those, and then store at those facilities, both up and down river.
Fascinating.
Any other questions? Commissioner North, any other questions you might have? Any from? I just want to, again, thank you for
I appreciate the opportunity.
presenting. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you. And we will.
As do I, likewise.
We'll make sure that your presentation gets distributed to us either one way or another. We'll do that.
And as it was, they were included in the PowerPoint, I'll provide digital copies of the renderings and the design plan that are
That'd
of a higher resolution.
That'd be perfect. And if you could coordinate, just Mary would be your contact, so we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
One question. So you had said the 60-foot, 16.5-foot flood, you'd have to move everything.
The benchmark height or river height would have to be determined in a management plan,
Okay,
a relocation.
so what is that?
management.
What do we call it? A spud?
Spud holes would have to be, spud holes, yeah, the marina would be cabled and also spudded in place to.
Down into the.
Go into the mud, yeah.
And what, I guess, the question.
There are cable facilities and winch facilities that pick that.
So that'll slide up and
Yeah.
down with the river.
Exactly.
And I guess what determines the height of that?
The height of what, at what point we move.
Yeah, well, no, I guess if you're gonna put a 60-foot one in, make this up.
Sure.
But an 80-foot would allow you to
There are certain.
rise the floods out more.
Yeah, we have issues there with water velocity on that side of the bend.
Okay, so it's not just the level, it's
If it was on the
velocity.
Kentucky side, you would have an eddy current situation, whether it be because of the bank. The water would be slower moving in that area. With an eddy situation on that side, we don't have afforded that luxury. The water moving fast moving in that area. So there would be some engineering considerations given to how many spuds, how high they were, at which point the water velocity would deem that structure needed to be.
So it's more velocity than.
Velocity and then also weight considerations with what is hanging off the dock. The weight of the boats, the weight of the dock, the weight of the high boats.
Is there a limit to the size of the boat that you guys would accept?
So most marinas on your, most transit marinas have a 100-foot length overall. We don't
Probably
see.
not that many 100-footers.
I think in this area, we would be fine doing a maximum length overall acceptance of 75 feet.
And for the big river boats,
Yes, ma'am.
Mississippi Queen, for instance, you're not interfering with them at all because they would be docking
Further
left
east,
of you.
further east, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And you have other opinions besides your own that say that these paddle wheels can come in
Yes,
without,
without hindrance.
based upon your location.
Correct.
Okay. No further questions for
No,
me?
that's great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome a representative from Queen City Riverboat. Commissioners, in the interim, I did receive a response back from procurement. The waiver of confidentiality does not allow you to see the proposal. It allows you to hear the presentation of which of parties were able to include as much as they wanted to.
That's interesting, if I may.
Yes.
My name is Don Jones, by the way. It says in something we've already signed off on, said Queen City Rivers and H. Hafner Incorporated hereby consent to the release of my full proposal submitted in response to, and there's a bunch of numbers there, to the Cincinnati Park Board Commissioners. I acknowledge that the proposal may become public record and hereby waive any claim to trade secrets, confidentiality, and things like that. So I was under the impression.
So your understanding is that.
I was under
you-
the impression that you would have the same with you.
It says in this document, so we,
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We did not have access to the waiver, and I will respond immediately.
and just so you know, we have stuff with us today and it says you can present that to the board.
Yes, sir.
So I don't want to, we didn't want to step out of bounds here, so we don't want to
You
do.
were allowed to bring whatever you would like, and I will follow up with the response that I just got with this comment.
So we thought you had already had the original proposal. This is just some clarifications. That, remember, if you recall in the last meeting, I just wanted to make sure you understood, our positions on these things. So
Thank you.
this has got some images in it and stuff of that nature.
Just for clarity, Kara, who has responded that we cannot see the
Ms.
proposal?
Hackman,
Okay,
I am
so-
responding back to her with the further information that we've just received.
okay.
And we sent this to Bobby, but can we certainly do you want
Yes.
the hard copy too?
Yes,
Thank
anything that
you.
you are distributing. Thank you.
Yes.
Looks like it all- So first of all,
Yes.
welcome
Thank you.
and please,
Yeah.
again, introduce yourselves.
Yes. So my name is Don Jones, and I'm with Queen City River Boats, and I'm joined with Brendan Sullivan, who is also an owner of Queen City River Boats, but also, perhaps more importantly, a huge developer in town with Manhattan Harbor, Manhattan Development Group. I've brought Brandon Shields with me, who is our United States Coast Guard licensed master captain, for support or questions. And then I also have Tyler, who is our engineer and architect. And then I also have Randy Johnson, who is with Megan Construction, who is our minority contractor. And so we'll have a similar presentation, by the way. I thought that was a great presentation. Thank you. Yeah. And just here to make our presentation and then answer any questions. I'm also a United States Coast Guard licensed captain. I've been a captain for 17 years with an impeccable record, spotless record. As Brandon is our main captain, I learned a lot from him, but so we have a lot of experience on the river. I grew up on the river. I also own Rivertown Marina, which is right there next to Four Seasons on Kellogg Avenue. Rivertown Marina is the largest marina in the city of Cincinnati. A lot of people think of Four Seasons as being such, which is great, but we have 600 plus boaters that are at our marina every day. Well, their boats are there every day. And we have in-water boats and out-of-water boats. And so 600 plus members. We're the largest marina in the city. So with that, if we could pull up the email that was sent to y'all, and we'll just kind of go through that. And Brendan's going to help me with any challenges that I might have, and just jump in whenever you feel appropriate. One of the things too that was brought up, really the reason why I think we're here today is because we gave a proposal over a year ago to the park board that was very exciting, but then people were concerned about its location. The location that we had chosen at the time was at the public landing. And that created some concerns about, river boats coming in town. I know there was a lot of kind of a letter writing campaign that kind of said, hey, don't put it there, because then I always like to refer to the Delta Queen. I grew up, I spent 2 summers on the Delta Queen. I shoved off and traveled the entire United States or inland waters on the Delta Queen. And of course, when they pull up to Cincinnati, they pull up right at the public landing. So we thought, well, if that's not a good location, we're more than happy to relocate. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to try to clarify here is where it should be located. And there is an existing permit that we can take advantage of with the Army Corps of Engineers that with some modification, we can put it there. So with that, if we could, oh shoot, I guess I need.
You just want to- you can hit the cursor there.
Okay.
Navigate.
And that'll help you walk through. Thank you. If I can. Okay, so this is a lot of photos here. We currently have this existing head boat that you see there in the upper left-hand corner. And that existing head boat was one of our proposals that we thought about modifying to bring to the city of Cincinnati. You can also see the Destiny, which is 85-foot excursion boat that you see out on the river every day. And we have 2 other very large boats that would stay on the Kentucky side. But I guess that gives you a sense for our involvement in the river. And I keep pointing this the wrong way, I think. And our current business model. Mission and proposal. We understand that the city is considering a transient boat dock. One of the key factors here, we want to make sure to touch on this very importantly, is the city of Cincinnati has an obligation to provide safety.
Fire and police.
Right. And as a result, that's crucial here in that we're going to provide plenty of harbor space for those boats. And currently Hamilton County Sheriff and the city of Cincinnati harbor with me at Rivertown. And let's face it, that is not conducive. Yeah, I mean, we are about 6 miles downriver from the city. Most of the activity, or at least the visual that you want to see, is in downtown. And so we will be allowing for the harbor of those boats at our facility. And that is also somewhat where some of the funding comes from. Because short of that, I think the city is penalized because they don't have proper harbor space. So again, going through the proposal here. Now my phone's ringing, sorry. Always at the worst time. We have come up with a proposal totaling about $1.7 million. That $1.7 million, I can break that down for you in round numbers. And you'll see the head boat that we're actually proposing here today. That 1.7 million would include a head boat, which would cost approximately $500,000. We have a contract to go purchase that, should we earn the bid. We also have about $600,000 to $700,000 for dock space and spud poles. So the round numbers are, you take the head boat as it exists now, it's $500,000, but we need to make significant improvements to it. And then the docks, which are about $700,000. The spud poles and everything to put that in place. About Queen City Riverboats, we are located in Kentucky. We do a lot of excursion boats. We're out there every day, all year. We do a lot of shuttles between the Hooters facility on Kentucky side for Reds and Bengals games, Riverbend, and all of those. So we do a lot of those daily activities. Just this weekend with the Bengals game, the number was 471 folks that we take from Hooters to the Bengals game. Reds game, we're there for every Reds game. We pick people up at Hooters and bring them over. What's nice about this is that we would bring them instead of to, right now they land at the public landing and people walk up and go to the Reds game, go to the Bengals game. We'd be able to land at our own harbor there, which would be very convenient. Of course, we'd have room for, there'd be a restaurant and bars and things like that as well. So with that, we can pick up from the Northern Kentucky side at Hooters, if you will, and then drop people at our facility.
Or our facility when we build, one of the reasons why we purchased this site, just to add a little bit of color to this, is we are the developers for the Manhattan development site in Dayton, Kentucky. This boat was docked up to one of the sites and we wanted to purchase the site. So to purchase the site, we would have lost parking for the boat business. So the seller was objecting to selling one without the other. So therefore, in our purchase of the land, they said, well, you got to take the boats as well. Well, our experience is in development. We found out through multiple people, they're like, you need to call one of 2 or 3 people on the river. And Don was the first guy I called. We met with each other and I said, hey, we are inheriting this boat business essentially. We're on the development side. And the reason why this is key is we don't want to move the boat business. We want to integrate it with the walkway. There's 11.5 miles of trails going in on that side of the river right now. There's no real destinations, and you kind of brought that up before. Where can you go and sort of convene for bikers, people that are on their bicycles that can get on a boat? People can park in our new development that we're doing with part of the public parking that we're going to provide. They can access our boats and they can do a river tour, which the very first thing I did when I came to town was did a river tour. One of the things we were talking to Don about is we don't want to move the boats. We want to make that part of an integral part of what our branding is on our site. We're happy to share that with you as well. But that goes into what Don was saying. Instead of going to the Hooters or the bars to pick people up, they will also do that from our location. So it makes this both sides of the river connect.
I'm not understanding where you're putting this.
Where we're putting for the city of Cincinnati.
Yes.
Okay. we are putting it right in downtown Cincinnati where the existing permit is.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You got a map?
Yeah, I'll get it. Yeah,
Thank you.
let me find it here. Okay, so here, next slide, would you know? This was the original rendering of our existing head boat.
Right.
The existing permit as offered by the Corps of Engineers is right down by the suspension bridge. The Roebling suspension bridge. Please don't look at that rendering because that is no longer what we're proposing. But there is, the other option is actually to move it up a little bit further to where the paddle wheel is. And in this proposal, I know it's in.
It's in our second, it's in our addendum.
Addendum, it's just right here, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry, because our original proposal, we were told that we should move it downriver. Now we actually want to do it where the old paddle wheel is, as you call it.
Yeah, the paddle wheel.
Public landing, but also allowing enough space to access the other boats that come on a regular basis. So
So again, your head boat would be near the paddle.
that's correct.
That's
Try to
right.
go south from there. We do have an image in these documents, and Tyler, our architect, has one as well. But we were told at the last presentation that was, a main reason, like our location wasn't as good of a location. We were being dictated to as to where our location should be. We prefer that it is where it is because it's way more integrated to the city. The stairs are right there to get in. It's just a much better location. We just didn't want to offend anybody by putting it there and precluding tall stacks or the other river boats that come.
And the head boat would be there and your
That's right.
docking would be to the river.
Go to the west. The docking would go to the west. 650 lineal feet of docking. So it would be 1,300 feet on the front and backside. I thought we said we needed about 200 feet or 150 feet for the fire boat and for the police boat. So we know that those two, we're allowing for that with obviously no charge to the city. That's where it's going to be. And they told us, again, this is information we garnered from the city, that as far away as those are right now, by the time something happens on an emergency, it takes 15 minutes to get through. The emergency is not an emergency anymore. It's critical. So that was a big part of why we even, brought this to the fore.
So the problem that you'll see with this photo, please disregard, is that it is where the existing dock permit was, and it also shows the docks going to the east. What we have now done, and in this presentation, you'll see a picture of one of the River Queens pulling in. And if we would violate that public landing, they would not, they wouldn't be able to dock there. That's on, I think, the last page of the presentation.
Yeah.
So with this, we will still allow for the river boats to dock. Should we do another tall stacks event, still plenty of room. However, the head boat, and Tyler, do we have a? Okay, thank you. I'll show you an image of where it's going to be, but the head boat will be basically right at the end at the bottom of the steps where that paddle wheel is. And then the docks would go to the west or downriver from there.
And again, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Then if with that modification,
Mhm.
is that existing permit applicable to be moved?
No, well, we would have to go with the Army Corps of Engineers, whom I have a relationship with. I was just on the phone with them again today with my marina. We would have to have that permit relocated.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that existing permit, which, and I think there's even a photo of where the existing permit is in this addendum presentation. And just to be clear, I'll show you where that is. Sorry.
Mr. Jazz, may I ask a question for clarification?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to reconfirm what you just said. So when the commissioners receive your proposal, which was your best and final offer, it will have the location, which is shown here on your image. And then you are proposing today an additional,
Well, what our first proposal had shows it in the location that was not desirable. We always wanted it up at the public landing, but we were told that that is not, that
So
there
you
were,
moved it to
so we moved it. The
down on the
new-
Blue Bridge.
Yeah, the new it's really not a new proposal, it's a clarification to our proposal that we gave you, that we would prefer that it's at the public landing, but we were precluded from doing that in our initial proposal because of some complaints, as Don said, by mostly
So
people on the other side.
for full clarity then, the proposal that's in the hands of the procurement department, if we ask for copies of the proposals.
It's
the
wrong.
Current proposal that they would give us, show it at this
That's
location
right.
or not. So have you presented to procurement where you are talking about today?
We were told not to give them anything until this meeting, and then we can update this. We're happy to provide you the new location, but we were not allowed to give any other information. They said we could share it with the board, and they sent me an email. Bobby did.
would it be a fair assumption that the details within the proposal remain accurate as to the site? The only thing that would be different is the location?
Yeah, just, there's clarifications to our original proposal. We did not change anything, any of the big points on this. Location is one of them.
Okay, so to be absolutely clear,
Yes.
the proposal that,
Can we see the image that we looked at earlier today?
Oh, did Mary need to step out? I apologize, Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Well, as soon as she returns.
Yeah.
so let me continue. then.
Yes.
Yes,
The proposal that we would have, the only difference would be the physical location of the head boat and the docks.
that's
Correct.
right.
The financial information and
That's
all the other aspects of the proposal would be as submitted to
That's
the
right.
procurement department.
Yes.
With one exception on the economic side.
I was
It's-
gonna just ask that.
Well, Catfish Bend was our
Part of our original
proposal, yeah. So then, while I have this photo up, let's talk about that and we'll get the rendering that we hope you see. This is a boat called Catfish Bend. It is 200-foot long. It is 1, 2, 3, 4 decks high. It is a riverboat. It is currently used to be a casino boat. We have an option to purchase. Again, the docks will be down from Catfish Bend. But it'll be by the paddle.
So that's the other change, is the orientation of head boat to dock versus the location of where.
Yes, and you will see that as soon as,
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
And so because
Oh, thank
you're being specific and we appreciate that, we offered two options. This is the one we preferred.
yes,
It's a bigger option, it's a better option, and it's what we prefer, but we also gave the other option just so you're an apples to apples comparison to what was the request was.
So what you're proposing to us today, so keep it there,
yes.
that boat, the Catfish.
That's right.
Would be your head boat. That would be your head boat.
That's your desire.
That's right.
But you're gonna move it to the public landing.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay.
And
And
orientation.
there would be permanently separate.
That's right.
Yes, and we have somehow,
I presume Mary said that for a good
That's right.
reason. She'll be
That's
right back.
right.
Okay.
and she'll be able to show you exactly where we positioned it, show you the spud holes and a rendering of what it would look. Okay.
Okay,
Because I'm understanding that the relative position of the head boat and the
Docks.
yeah, the docks, thank you, will be switched.
Yes.
from
Yes,
the-
that's right.
That's
That's correct. Yeah, okay. And then a couple other things regarding the Catfish Bend. We have local sponsorship and not to be. Red Legs Landing is the proposed name of the boat. We've been in contact with the Cincinnati Reds. They are sorry for any conflicts, but the Cincinnati Reds are more than anxious to give us that name right.
You just prohibited me from ever voting.
And the other nice part about that is the top deck of this would be an open patio area with bars and things like that. During fireworks, things like that on a somewhat weekly basis, we anticipate that to be completely rented out.
And
Yes.
the relative size of that, so as we see there, obviously it has to be lower to go under the suspension bridge. So that is 4 stories or how tall? is
Yeah,
it?
well, the size, this is, if you're familiar with the Bernstein code,
Yeah,
it's the exact same size.
Okay.
So it's a very, very similar boat to Bernstein's.
Okay.
What is the capacity?
Well, so our goal is on the first floor, the capacity is substantial. I mean, for a restaurant, bar area, and we have some.
It's between 8,000 and 9,000 square feet per floor, depending on if you, and it's got full bathroom facilities, full shower facilities, elevators, everything that would be required, but it gives us 2 additional floors to develop in the future. So it's got expandability, unlike the first option we showed you. That's why we like this. In addition, this has, as Don said, about 8,000 square feet on the roof deck.
For outdoor
Events, parties, you talked about weddings, we've already talked to a company about that. So there are things that we can do to interface where this really truly becomes a destination.
I may get smacked for saying this,
Uh,
but is there any thought when Ohio passes the ability to gamble on sporting events? That you would reuse?
Well, this
some of
boat
that
was a
space?
gambling boat that was decommissioned because they allowed them to put gambling on ground.
I understand that.
So we got very fortunate in being able to purchase something like
I'm
this.
just saying, have you any interest?
We don't think so, but we've talked about developing it into where you could do rooms upstairs, hotel rooms, and leave it, call it a flotel. That has yet to be determined, but we've got design images and renderings of what we're hoping to do with this, because it's got elevators, full heat, full air conditioning, all the plumbing that you need, plus cooking. Areas already set up on it. It's literally designed to be self-sufficient.
And since you brought it up, I will be sensitive to any potential conflicts of interest.
Mhm.
So just duly noted here that we may, Commissioner, I would welcome you to sit here and listen and take this in, but I would request that you not actively participate at this point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So that allows us even more latitude, I think. If, because we've been in discussion with the Reds and they want to sponsor that top deck every fireworks Friday night. They have a sponsor already in mind. We have the name Red Legs Landing already here, which he has granted, should we be the successful bidder. And this,
Excuse me, did you say red lights?
Red Legs, Cincinnati Red Legs. Yeah.
So when was that, Don? I'm sorry. He told us, what was that, early 1900s is what they were called? Red Legs?
Yeah, they're known as the Red Legs, yeah.
Okay.
That top deck is quite impressive. I'm going to try to flip back a little bit to show you the actual boat. It's called Catfish Bend.
It was built in 1995 and we went through everything in the boat works. So it's in like pristine working condition, which is really important to people like us because obviously it's going to be an enclosed vessel, air conditioned, heated, full plumbing.
Yeah. This is a photo of the actual boat. It is kind of as a side wheel type design, as opposed to the Bernstein's boat, which is a stern wheel type design. That will fit underneath the bridge, no problem. Of course, we would change the name from Catfish Bend Casino to Red Legs Landing. A lot of the color schemes would change as well. But again, this top deck, and it is a functioning boat. I mean, we were literally driving into town. But then we will somewhat decommission it. Once it's there, we intend for it to stay there. This top deck is tremendous. I think it's 8,000 square feet. And that's a picture of the boat that we have access to.
Mr. Jones, is
Yes.
this a boat that would be docked, or is this considered your head boat?
This would be our head boat.
But it would be permanently moored there, if you will, with the remaining dock heading downriver, as Don said, off of the back of the boat.
And do we have that rendering finally? Yeah, that'll solve a lot of our questions here, I think.
And I want to thank Mary and apologize
Yeah.
to anybody that's watching. This is thrown together.
Mary, thank you.
quickly, so.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mary.
My pleasure.
thank you.
Just make sure that the people on the call can see.
Yeah, there it is.
So again,
Sorry.
And Tyler, I don't know that you
What-
showed a full
what-
16.
What is the plan for that boat? I hear you on the rooftop, but that's a massive boat.
yes, so the first floor would be restaurant, bar. Second two floors, we're proposing to make into a hotel. Basically a boutique hotel that would have about 80 hotel rooms.
It could have up to, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
probably be less than that, just because it's limited to where the window cuttings are.
Right. So it'd be a boutique hotel. The hotel, you can imagine somebody coming in for the Bengals game this weekend, or the Reds game this weekend, or just downtown conventions. That gives them an option. Beautiful views of obviously the river in northern Kentucky, but also beautiful views of Cincinnati. Here's the stern wheel we talked about and the location. So this is not appropriate, the number of the length of the slips. It's just there for rendering purposes, but our slips will be 650 feet long.
That's right.
With docking on both sides, so 1,300 feet.
In service for number of the year.
All year.
And your docking, what type of material is that?
So it's a steel docking with floats, and it is also, then it has concrete
Deck.
deck.
And forgive me if questions I ask come up later. Are you planning for facilities like shower facilities
Yes.
and stuff?
So you'd have access on the first floor for shower facilities, pump out stations, things like that are all available. This, by the way, is where the Showboat Majestic used to be, just so from perspective. Pay no attention to these spud poles there, but this would all be spudded in place, as you can kind of see going back 600 feet, 650 feet. There would be access from the docks to shore, and then as required by Coast Guard, there's 2 exit ramps.
And questioning your engineer here, then this is to scale. So is that the proportion and size of that photograph in relation to the paddle wheel installation, right? Is that all to scale?
Everything's to scale. The boat dock there is really at 300 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the boat dock there would be 200 feet or 300 feet long. This would give plenty of parking, obviously, for people going to the Reds game, Bengals game, public landing. And it would also allow for, should we do another tall stacks event? Should, the Mississippi Queen, the American Queen, all those boats that still are now coming back into town, that gives them plenty of room to still moor there.
So I think we've interrupted you enough. Go back.
Yeah. So I'm not sure.
You know where you were.
Yeah, if I can go back to to the.
Proposal, the original proposal. And just so you all know, these renderings are in neither document. Where this location is, we're happy to supplement you with any additional information.
Yeah, I believe Mary now has access to that, and we'll include that to the commissioners moving forward on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, that is the picture of the, what's now known as Catfish Bend. It's available to us for sale. We're just waiting for the city to say, yeah, let's move forward. Let's just stay focused on this photo for a second. The ground floor, you would have two ramps, if you will, to come onto the boat from the public landing. It would also, the first floor would be primarily restaurant and bar. On that first floor are elevators that would then take you up to additional lobbies and up to the third floor as well. Well, the forward elevators wouldn't take you to the top deck. But that top deck is, it's stunning. And so everybody would have access to the top deck and the first floor. And then our intention is to put about 40 hotel rooms on the floors 2 and 3. There's elevators there. This boat is in great condition from an air conditioning standpoint, heating, utility standpoint. We would have to get those utilities from the city. I mean, bring them down to the public landing and things like that. But and then there'd be a pump out station or a dump station for the sewage, just like is common on.
And it was set up for that prior, meaning the public landing actually had sewer, water. We checked it all out. We had our engineer, civil engineer look, sewer, water, and electric is all easily hooked up at this site.
And in the proposal that is in front of procurement, is the requirement for the city to bring those down to you? Is that already included in there?
We put a budget in there in our proposal to you to do that.
Okay,
So it's within our bid.
okay.
But is it necessary? Because
You're not supposed to.
Yes. It is what it is, but it is.
Sorry.
We feel it'd be, and since you cannot participate anymore, I appreciate that somewhat, and that gives us further leverage to expand upon how big of an event place this can be. People come in for the Reds game, here's a hotel. People come in for the Bengals game, they got a hotel room, the bars and things like that on the first floor. I think it'd be pretty special. We do not anticipate full-time mortgage at Rivertown and at Manhattan Harbor. Those docks are there for people to stay there all the time. We anticipate weekend mortgage, people come in for the evening, we would be charging for the evening. People would come in for a weekend. I also am now in the RV park business, which I find fascinating. And RV park folks, they come in for weekends, for weeks, for 2 or 3 weeks, things like that. We would prefer to keep people at about a 3-week stay, just to keep the turnover. And when you have people that consider it their marina, that gets a little fun in my mind, in that you have these transient boaters pulling in, and then there's a whole clique of regular boaters there, or permanent boaters. So we would keep this primarily as transient harbor only.
And would you, in your business model, charge if somebody came in for a football game? Would you charge them, if they came in for the game and left, would
Yes.
there be a charge?
There would be a fee, yeah,
Okay,
based on the size of the boat.
Mr. Jones, I'm not familiar with the city process to build or operate a hotel. Is this something that could be, or I guess, are you aware of what those steps would be, if you could share those with us? And, is the hotel operational on day of opening? Thanks.
So I think, Tyler, if you want to respond a little bit to that, how this might be permitted.
It wouldn't be permitted any differently than if it were on land, really. The city will still have jurisdiction to authorize the building department the safety of the structure.
That's right.
Same with zoning. We have to achieve zoning permission, compliance to the zoning board, just like it were on land. there's a nuance to the way everything is built, given that it's a boat. So, but still, those documented drawings still have to be channeled through the city's static building zone.
And I would assume there would need to be a zoning change to allow for a hotel at that location.
I'm not certain, and neither was anyone at the city that I spoke with.
Okay,
And so to answer that question perhaps more directly is, we've done a preliminary,
Right.
but we have not, I can't sit here and tell you, oh yeah. that would
We
be
got
okay.
permits ready to
Yeah.
go.
and so, again, I'm being, in the proposals that are presented to the procurement department today, is there any discussion on a hotel?
No, we put this in as option 2. We did an option 1, which was apples for apples on the other proposal.
Yeah.
This option 2 is the one we prefer, but until we got some reaction from you all, we didn't, I mean, it's, the next steps become,
Okay, so
involved.
So even as a option 2, it was a high-level option 2 without detailed
That's right.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the second floor.
Hmm.
So it's the first floor and the top deck that would be open.
Public.
Yes.
Those are public.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the first floor is restaurant, shower facilities, laundry,
And bar.
bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is, how many square feet again? I keep.
I think it goes 9,000, 8,000, 7,000, and then the top deck's about 6. We've got the dimensions, we have the plans for the boat. We've got all of the infrastructure stuff we need to take it to the next level. Again, we are hiring engineers and architects to work on this. We can come with a more detailed sort of show of what we're trying to do.
The docks themselves will be spud poled in place, which is what we use at Rivertown Marina and Manhattan Development and things like that.
It's a development team.
Yeah, so there's myself, is Don Jones. I own, I have a 100 gross ton master's license. I'm owner of Queen City Riverboats. I'm also an owner, as it relevant to this, is Rivertown Marina, which is again a 600 boat marina. Brendan Sullivan, Manhattan Development Group. Brendan, why don't you talk a little bit about your development history?
Hey, excuse me, before we get into resumes, I want to go back to the project. I had a couple of questions,
Sure.
kind of difficult to insert myself. Just to give you some reaction on having a screen of a casino boat is not comfortable for me. I really want to get back to just, again, a more macro view of what this means. And I think of our responsibility as a park board to think about the everyday use of our public spaces, not game days, not special events, but how this transient boat dock is going to be experienced by the everyday users of downtown Cincinnati, whether it's downtown workers, downtown residents, regular boaters. And this feels not connected to that philosophy that I have and our responsibility as a park board at all. The other thing that is really bothersome about this is the size and scale of this boat and the placement of the boat. It really creates, I think, a separation from what is a world-class park, the views and connection that it has with a river, and I think places a massive structure between that park user and the river. What I see on your the slide that you had before this as well didn't seem like high capacity for the transient boat dock users. So, I'm trying to pull apples to apples on these two presentations. They're very, very different.
Sure. If I could just interrupt there for 1 second, the image you saw of the rendering, that was 300 feet of dock. It will be 600 feet of dock, 650 feet of transient harbor space. So on that rendering that you saw, the only thing that was different, that was not to scale, would be the transient harbor.
And to put this in perspective so that I'm clear as well.
Mhm.
If you're looking at the positioning that you're proposing at the, and I think it's the same positioning that we were looking at in the prior presentation.
Yeah.
At the foot in front of or towards the river from the paddle boat installation. Above that is not, that's walkway, it's cement walkway, it's not,
And the road,
I'm sorry?
and the road is behind it. We went and looked at it. So-
Yeah, so it's beyond, it's east of the, and I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, from a park standpoint. I believe it's east of the end of Smale Park. And this would be more directly below the paddle wheel installation as you move into the serpentine wall. So it's not, it's beyond Smale, it's not at the foot of Smale. And to also put it in perspective, it would be then below the circle access to the suspension bridge. No, that's not correct. That's not correct. Take that all the way. This would be down below the Reds Stadium. You would have the Red Stadium, Marion Way, the paddle boat installation monument, and then there's concrete stairs, I believe, that go down, then that connects to the serpentine wall.
Well, the serpentine wall that is,
Well, down to the east.
it connects to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only other mention that I would say to that is, and I wish we could go back to that rendering that we had. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Yeah, that rendering that Tyler just sent you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So I apologize for the lady on Zoom. You can't see me pointing, presume, Molly, but so here is the parking lot. This is where everybody parks for Bengals games, Reds games. Showboat Majestic used to be right there. There are stairs, I'm sorry, coming down underneath the paddle wheel memorial. The paddle wheel memorial, by the way, I always thought was quite attractive. The stairs are always chained off for some reason. Does anybody know why?
Because it floods.
No. They're always chained off. And I think to myself, why do we have this beautiful steamboat memorial? And oh, by the way, there's a series of whistles here. That you used to be able to hear all this steamboat whistles. I would love to get involved in getting those working again. Pardon me?
They're broken.
They're broken. Okay, so
I understand they're broken.
yes. So I heard from somebody that they might be broken, but why not get them working again? I mean, after all, they're there. I've got one. I'd be happy to help with that. Because I think I'm a steamboat guy, right? Grew up on the Delta with my dad. Anyway, we won't go there. But so there's steps coming down here. These steps are always chained off. You're not allowed to walk these steps. Why? I have no idea. There's a chain right across those steps. This would be, Molly, the boat dock would be an additional 300 feet beyond here. So everything's basically to scale, except for the transient harbor would be a total of 650 feet. And we're showing it at 300 feet on this record.
And to my point, this is sort of in between Smale Park to the west, to the left, and the beginning of Sawyer Point with the serpentine wall. It's even part of that. So that's a parking lot.
If you don't mind, if I could add, I'm doing a project in St. Louis. I was there this summer multiple times at their park where the arch is. There are two boats like this right on the river, and it's bustling with people. And my daughter went to school in New Orleans. Same thing. Those boats are up and down that river, right by where the parks and the public areas are. It's part of the sort of aura and ambiance of a city like this. So I think this is really an attraction, not a detraction. It's my personal opinion.
Right, and I remember when you were in St. Louis, you sent me a video, yeah, so Don, look at
Yeah.
all these people,
Yeah.
I mean, and some of those barges or boats weren't quite as attractive as this, but they were, they sell hot dogs, whatever, and everybody was down on the river, and that's the Mississippi.
And just one other comment on multiple of our boat cruises that we did this year. Literally, people that we're associating with were like, is there a place we could just go dock over here? And there is nothing. We couldn't even drop people off.
Right.
That had asked us if when we were with them.
I took a friend of mine out on a personal boat of mine, and Brian said, hey, Don, why don't we pull up and go have dinner at the banks? And Brian, we can't. What do you mean we can't? Well, you can't, there's no place to dock. It's all concrete.
Commissioners and Mr. Jones have just under 20 minutes.
Thank you.
So let me interject in with that note. I don't know what your plan is for continued presentation, because I
Yep.
keep interrupting you, but
That's okay.
as far as operations of this, can you fill us in more on, since we don't have your proposal? Tell us a little bit about, so for example, a ship that size, maintenance will be a big issue long-term. Who's responsible for maintenance? What's the operating proposal that you're presenting to us?
So maintenance, obviously, when we bring this boat in, we will be repainting it all. The hull itself is tremendous. We've already had the hull sounded and, we have no leaking issues with the hull. We would be looking to paint it similar color schemes to this versus the, Molly, I don't know if you remember the yellow one. Yeah. And of course, it will not say Catfish Bend Casino. We have another.
They'll have another name.
Yeah. As far as the restaurant, there is already a very nice, I'm a pizza guy. There's already a wonderful pizza oven still in this facility, because keep in mind, this was an operating restaurant / casino. So we could see menus such as pizza and other things. We're not running that. We will hire a restaurateur.
And one of our partners, just so you know, if you look at our resumes, owns several bar restaurants, very successful, Las Vegas. He's got one in Montana. And his group, we talked to his groups about helping us run this.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, specific to the question that we asked to Mr. Cooper in regards to profit sharing. Can you give us some insight into how the various operations would benefit the city and approximation of what you believe that benefit would be?
Want me to-
Yes.
So first of all, it was really hard to determine what that number was because everything's based on a pro forma. So we did 5% on gross revenue of what we take in at our facility.
5% gross revenue
Gross
of your bar restaurant.
That's right, and dock operation.
And
So we just estimated an amount of what we thought would come in. We did that based on the smaller proposal that we had given you. And again, those are estimated numbers. With our larger operation, obviously, there's a much larger upside to the city, and our objectives are obviously to try to do the larger operation. And go ahead.
I'm not sure what you mean by larger operation.
The Catfish Bend.
So this is option 2.
That's right.
Option 1 was the
5%.
smaller
That's correct.
head boat that you already have
That's correct.
across the river
That's
that you
correct.
can move.
Right.
So that's the big distinction between option 1
Not
and
only
2.
is it a big distinction, we haven't given you any economic numbers on option 2. Those are things that we didn't know if we should even talk to you about this, but this is what we prefer. So we can, go ahead.
So if it's 5% of the top line, we can shoot some proposal or some performance together. But basically, it's 5% of the docking, 5% of the
Bar.
bar, restaurant, hotel.
Just 5%.
That's right.
And it would be the case, that was the case in the original proposal.
Mhm.
This option 2
Has a much higher revenue number.
Right.
Yeah,
Still
5%, that's right.
Okay.
Across the board.
And I think when you were asking about operations, one thing Don was talking mostly about the facilities, but we're full-time down at our Queen City Riverboats. We have a staff on hand that stay there. They're there every day. One of our gentlemen, that's one of our captains, is here full-time. We have a full-time maintenance guy specifically for boats. So it's not like they're working on our development sites. They are literally down on our boats at Queen City Riverboat. So we're going to expand our operation, move across the way, and then we have facilities at both places. We have all the equipment, when I say equipment, all of the machinery and stuff necessary to really primarily handle our boats, but that would work across the river for us as well.
And our boats will
Maintenance.
stay across the river.
And we will keep our operation on the other side open. So our boats will be on that. One of the objections last time was, oh, you're going to put your boats at and take up our valuable dock space. That's not our intention. We're going to stop there, drop people off, and then go back.
Yeah.
That's our intention.
What about staffing ongoing?
Well, that's what we were just talking about. We'll expand our staffing. Currently, we have 5, 6 people full-time,
Yes.
excluding the restaurant, but people in a restaurant or a bar, they're not, if something happens out there, you need guys with, high levels of experience to run it. And Brandon, we've got his resume on our proposal. Don's is there, and our group, who our maintenance guys are as well.
And in this proposal, this scheme, things like forgive me, I don't know where the dumping of the black water. And all of that, where would all of that take place? And do you?
Sewer, it would be pumped to the city sewer.
Yes.
Yeah, but where, so in this proposal, when you've got an existing boat,
Mhm.
where would you put it on the deck or where,
No, so for the operation itself, there's black water, there's sewer.
Yeah.
That would go directly into the city sewer.
Yeah.
And then the pump out station for transient boaters would be near the dock so that they can access the pump out stations. Very familiar with pump out stations. We have that at Rivertown. We don't charge for it. It's free of charge. Other marinas choose to charge for those. But it's just we got it through a grant.
federal grant?
Yeah, to allow, you don't want to pump that into the water.
So we have holding tanks, then we pump out of those.
Mr. Jones, you have 10 minutes remaining.
And you do not at this point anticipate any refueling or anything like that?
Fueling on the river, there's ample places for that. I think, he mentioned earlier, where would you'd have to have a massive storage
From our
tank.
perspective, I think
we don't want
I'll be glad not to have
Right.
refueling.
We do have fueling at Four Seasons. There's fueling across the way at the other marina. There's a potential to put fueling at Rivertown, but to be honest with you, it's more of a nuisance than a moneymaker.
With 10 minutes left, I want to make sure you've had the opportunity to present whatever you want to present. But make sure, are there questions at this point from other commissioners?
I just have one clarification.
Mhm.
You mentioned 150 feet for emergency, that would be dedicated for emergency. And is that number dictated by the city?
Yeah, they told us it would be between 75 and 100 feet per boat for the fireboat and the police boat. So we actually added 50 feet onto our dock. We could add another 50 if we needed additional. We're okay with expanding. If they're using that and we run out of space, we want those people to come to us. And we also talked about, I don't know if Don mentioned, but in our prior conversations, we also talked about people being able to moor for the weekend, if you will, and people will pay during the games, they will come and stay for a weekend on a Labor Day or whatever. So those are pretty substantial numbers. And again, when I say, when you do a pro forma, you're largely anticipating what it might be. It could be greater, it could be less. We don't want to make any What we're telling you is that that number can vary month to month.
You've done a pro forma for option one.
Yes, not for option two. We would, that's my last thing I was gonna say is we'd like to present you with our budgets and stuff for option two. It's clearly way more expensive for us, but we think it substantially changes the revenue numbers.
And along with the operations, do you anticipate your head boat being 12 months a year, or what's your planned operations for the docking itself,
12 months a year for the head boat.
for the head boat?
Yes,
okay?
sir.
And for the docks?
For the docks, well, there's very few boaters out there 12 months a year. They would stay in place behind the head boat, and they would, if the fire department and the police chose to stay there, that's great, but we would be there. I mean, the operation itself, just like we were all at, Queen City this morning, we're running those boats.
Let me ask it differently. In your option one proposal, how many weeks were you including in your,
It's in there.
Yeah.
in your pro forma for operation of the boat dock?
Yeah, we think March 1st, November 15th, say, so
It's in the proposal.
how many weeks that is, or,
Okay.
yeah. And we think with a 5% top line share with the city, that motivates us to do well, it gives back to the city, and we think it'll be a great opportunity. We are a river town. And as Justin mentioned too before, it's like, gosh, the city really needs something like this. So whether you choose ours or theirs, I want to thank you for considering it, because it's just so much going on downtown, and boaters feel left out.
There's no question.
So would your option one would be, call it in scale and operations fairly similar to the first presentation?
Yes, approximately.
Okay.
Well, let me ask,
Bar restaurant, but at a smaller scale, head boat,
Bathrooms.
Outdoor patio bar restaurant.
and we're clearly hearing you today saying that this option two is your preferred.
Yes.
Is option one still on the table?
Yes.
Okay.
We just didn't want to lose the job
I
because
understand.
we.
Would option one be in this new location?
Yes,
Yes.
same location, same amount of docks.
So I have just,
1,300
yeah,
feet job.
I just have two other points that I wanted to make, and they're addressed in the addendum. But we would like to come back to you with some more information on option two, which we were kind of hedging what we ought to do on that. We really would like to bring you some additional information on that, but we didn't want to get, like violate our rule on that, if you will.
Well, in all fairness, I am unsure and I need to obtain some clarity on the extent to which the commissioners are able to consider all options. This did go out to a public bid, and this option was not the presented.
We were very careful to make sure we communicated with Bobby and no one else, so we will definitely do that. And the second thing, which we felt like we were misscored on a number of things on what the original committee came back to us on. One of them was inclusion, and one of them was, which was we got a 0 for that. And I wanted to just point out two things. First of all, we said we would comply with all of the inclusions. One of our contractors that's the minority-owned business is here today, and the second one is the woman-owned business. Both of them are certified. Both of them said, we can't provide you with all the bids and the numbers, but they stand at our ready. Those are the contractors we're going to use. We'll hit every single mark on that, and that was in our original proposal.
We got a 0 for that.
Yeah, we got a 0 for that, but one of the reasons why, which is no mistake of the boards, is the woman-owned business that we are using had their application for 4 months, and it was not yet certified. It is now. So I could see why they went and checked and said, oh, it's not, but we even brought him to our meeting and they said, okay, you should have it by then. But then when the score came out, it had not yet fully been vetted or through your process. It's done. It's complete. We can give you the certificates.
And the final comment I'd like to make is our river experience is second to none. This isn't our first rodeo. We've been on the river. I'm a captain. We have captains that work for us. I've been boating all my life on the river. I've been on Delta Queen up and down. We think we are the preferred candidate when it comes to that as well.
The only other question, I'm sorry, but the only other question I have is, you know, in some of those renderings, can you make sure that the Ohio River is as blue?
Yeah. Yes, you bet. You bet.
Commissioner North, do you have other questions? I know it's hard for you to interject on the screen.
No, I don't mind interjecting, as you know, Jim, but no, I don't have any further questions. And again, I would just like to extend thanks for, you know, all the work you've put into this, and appreciate the advocacy for the boating community that you bring. And I look forward to continuing our dialogue on this. So thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of Justin and all of us, thanks for your time. Because this is really, we feel, something that the city needs. So if you go to St. Louis, if you go to Louisville, if you go to Paducah, Kentucky, they have an award-winning transient harbor, Paducah, Kentucky.
How's the baseball team?
I don't know. I don't want to bring that up. But river towns need river access. And we need to do something here because it's, you know, you can pull up to the Serpentine Wall. Now, that's a concrete barrier that.
It's hard to dock a boat there.
Yeah, you don't want to tie up to this concrete wall. So anyway,
All right,
thank you.
this has to do with the Reds, all right?
Okay.
But I have a burning question for both of you all.
Okay.
And that is, because this is basically for the voters to use, and then therefore use the rest of our city, and so on and so forth, and because what we're being asked to spend in
Yes.
conjunction with this is a lot of money. And because we are supposed to take care of 121 parks, city parks, we must consider how we spend what monies we have. Is there any consideration by either of these two groups to organize fundraising by your voting people to help defray the costs to us of running these operations or having these operations? I've not heard any mention of that.
Those are definitely options that are presented.
Yeah.
Upon consideration, but I'd like to point out that there are certain recreational communities within the population that receive focused funds. Bird watching, biking, park access, those focused communities within our population. And I think for a long time, as I stated earlier, voters have felt left out.
Yeah.
Voters have been sold a bill of goods for many years, with the inception of the bank's plan that this was going to be an aspect of that project, and it never happened. I think it's time that some decision be made, and as much as Donna said, I think we're both in agreement that it doesn't really matter to a degree. Either one gets chosen, but something be done. But other avenues for funding would definitely be something that could be.
The other comment I would like to make is I have experienced the problem with the emergency boats not being on site.
Right.
Yeah.
And I happened to be down at the public landing when a car rolled into the river. They didn't know whether there was anybody in that car. And we all saw it bobbing down the river. And then we saw the emergency vehicles all coming and trying to get in there. By the time they arrived, that vehicle had sunk.
Right.
So if there had been somebody in it, they would have been dead.
This was
So
the first-
it's very important that something be done.
And that's the only, to follow up with Justin there is, I know it's a lot of money, but we need those emergency services too. I think we do. You
So
know,
this is the first I've heard that the police or sheriff want to dock.
Yeah.
I've always heard it's just fire, but now there's both, there's two boats. Okay.
Yes. And then candidly, there's other, you know, for example, I have 2 Hamilton County Sheriff boats at Rivertown. They pay me to launch them into the water, and they are on trailers, and I could see them wanting to be there as well. I mean, why would they want to? They're mainly on patrol on a weekend, but I think for the safety of the community and just, it's needed,
Yeah.
and police and fire, and it's a valuable asset.
President Getz, we picked equal amount of time communicating directly.
Well, I want to, again, also thank you for the presentation and appreciate your time and presenting to us and answering your questions.
And thanks for your time, and yeah, good luck with your decision. I do think that one way or the other, it'll be money well spent.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We really appreciate your time.
I would like to discuss just briefly path forward here. I would state that this, again, I'll re-emphasize, this is the first time that this commission has been exposed to the two proposals. I think I would recommend that we continue to pursue receiving complete information that would be distributed to us. I would like to then, once full information is available to us, to also give staff time to review those and to make sure we've got time where we have feedback from staff on their thoughts, questions on proposals. And quite honestly, today, it's, I would have to say it's not apples to apples. I believe that I want to thank both parties for going through the procurement process that was presented to you. I think we will need clarity as a commission as well, as the director pointed out, since what I believe has been presented to us primarily today, a proposal number 2, an option that is your preferred. So we've got some sorting out to do. I am very empathetic to the comment of how much time has been devoted to this and for how long this has been discussed. I would say, however, that the fact that we're sitting here today represents our interest in bringing this to a head, so to speak. We want to move on as well. Either we're going to do this or we're not going to do this. And I would think that, speaking for my commission friends here, that I personally don't feel like I have enough information today to take any action whatsoever on this. And I would like to post haste, make requests for additional information through our city. We are part of the city of Cincinnati, so we must make sure that we abide by what's required of us from a procurement standpoint. But I would commit to both parties that we will not let this sit, that we will be active in pursuing more information. We do have a meeting a week from today. I will not guarantee that this will be an agenda item a week from today. I believe it'll take more time for us to get all that information, and it's too important an issue to make a decision in a matter of days. I will commit that we also would like to make sure that we feel comfortable as a commission that we have gotten enough input from the community. None of us here have experience running a boat dock. What we've seen today are some very, very different proposals, some very different options, more considerations than I think that we've had in the past. So I would like to commit that we will commit to seeking additional information. I want to make sure that we get enough public input on these options that we have in front of us, but do it in a manner that we come up with a final decision for everybody concerned. My objective would be that we at least have a direction. I would like to by the end of the year, but I can't commit to that because of the timing and getting all the information. Any other input from any of the commissioners as far as
Just a couple of points, I think, as far as information gap. The pro forma on option 2 is going to be really, I think, important for us to see And kind of following Molly's comment, because it related to the colored view impacted on option 2, that's pretty substantial structure to maybe have some rendering or perspective coming from the Kentucky side, looking at it, you know, not from a top angle down, but really to, you know, I think, you know, community feedback to have for something like that, to be able to see just, you know, a rendering that maybe depicts call it reality, you know, from a human's perspective, not from a bird's perspective, that I think could help, you know, guide or give some sense of perspective to us and others out there.
And for me, because we haven't had the same kind of view of option 1 that was presented, we will get it.
Yes.
It will be helpful, absolutely, to have that, because now we're talking about 3 options. So, so that we can compare across all 3, that would be important.
And again, to be clear, we have boundaries from a procurement standpoint, and we must make sure that we don't violate those boundaries that we have. So if indeed we wish to look at a proposal that for some reason does not fall within PDR, PDQ, PDF, whatever we went out with, I just want to be clear that there's some things that we make sure that we follow to the T.
Yeah.
But we commit to doing that.
So my question was to, if we had not had option 2 today, what kind of presentation would we have seen on 1? And I think that is within the scope of what has been presented and within the process. So that's.
And hopefully, as we stated earlier, we will pursue being able to see the full proposals. So that information is available to us. Any other? Okay.
Jim, I would
Yes,
ask, can you hear me, Jim?
Yes, ma'am.
I would ask Kara and the staff team to enumerate for us in our next meeting where we discuss this, the objectives for this boat dock that have been established by the park board. And if those have not been clearly established, then I'd ask that we take some time to establish that, because I think what happened today was indicative of what we've already decided, which is the process we should have gone through, was a request for information, which in some ways is what we received today. Because the objectives that what we saw today sought to achieve completely different objectives. And I feel less clarity, I think, at this point than I did at the beginning of the meeting, because I'm really not clear what we're seeking to achieve with this boat dock. You know, if it's on one hand connecting the transient boat community to the downtown area to engage with the city for the day, that's different than creating a destination or tourist attraction in the form of a hotel with special events, et cetera. So I just feel there's a real risk of us making a decision that we maybe didn't intend to make if we're not really clear on what our objectives for this boat dock are. So
That's extremely valid, and I think actually to the point, and that's where I think that is our first point of discussion. I think that we should be clear amongst the commissioners what it is that we're looking for, and then based on that, look at the proposals that we have with that view. So I agree. So I think our path forward here will be to, as I said earlier, try and get additional information quickly, try and put a process together for when we have
Once we have in front of us clear proposals, that we then also, before a final decision is made, that we ensure that we have engaged the public and work to bring this whole issue to a head as quickly as possible. Are there any other discussions or comments that anybody would like to make at this point? The whole realm, boat dock or anything else?
I just have one more, which is to thank Kara, Craig, and Jenny for coming to work on their day off.
And Mary, she's the one running the show.
And Mary. You know, there are a few real benefits, I think, for working for the city, but this being one of them, that you get, you know, government holidays off. So thank you for working it. Please let us know how we can make this up to you.
Thank you.
Okay, having heard that, then our next regular meeting is a week from today, and you'll be getting agendas, et cetera, in a packet very quickly here. If there's no objection, then I will personally move for adjournment. Do I have a second? Second. And knowing the roll call is going to be dispensed, and all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, and thank you again for the public.
The last thing we want to happen with this